Hello, everybody. Good afternoon to the newcomers as well as partners and clients in the EMEA region, as well as perhaps a good morning to the very early risers in Americas. I want to thank you very much for your time in sharing your valuable day with us today to get a little bit of an overview of our Fanvil's broadcasting and communication solution. People are signing on at this point in time, but allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tommy Lee. I'm the VP of Sales for North America here with Fanvil, and I'm going to go ahead and really provide a good overview of the solution. Before I get started, I want to do some house cleaning things for everyone who is signed on to go to webinar. You can go to your client and actually see in the handout section of your clients, you should be able to download a soft copy of this presentation, so you don't have to go down and take notes or whatever like that. You can download a PDF version of the slide for your future and personal reference. In addition, everybody's going to be muted for this webinar, and if you do have questions, I highly suggest you add those questions onto the question sheet. You do have a question box of which you can put in your questions as you go along, and at the end of this webinar, I'll be more than happy to stay on and address those questions as you put them on. Okay, so with that said, let me go ahead and do a move on, and again, thank you very much for your time. What I'm going to go over today is really instead of just focusing in on our PA solution, which is really outlined here, which is the core, I want to spend a little bit of time outlining really the overall concept of what really is required in putting together a whole broadcasting system, as well as a paging system throughout, taking advantage of the core SIP product of our PA type solutions in the gateway. So I'm going to do just a solution overview, and as well, very often, many people control these things either through a PC, when you go ahead and interface to these PAs through the GUI interface, or you could either do it through one of our console-based IP phones. In this case, we'll use the A32i, which is really our new Linux-based console phone, and you'll understand the reason why we decided to do that. And at the end, I'm going to go ahead and go over some application scenarios as well as a few case studies to really show you the broad-based usage of the SIP gateway. So with that said, let's go ahead and move forward. To give you a little bit of history, before these PA gateways came out, about 10 years ago, many system integrators used to go ahead and take apart a IP phone that they were used to, and they used to jerry-rig wires internal to the phone to be able to say, you know, what I really need is something that pairs up with my hosted or on-prem IP PBX, and be able to provide all of the basic core SIP functionality, but be able to produce things I wanted to. So they unhooked the handset that they needed to, or the speaker wire phones, and be able to jerry-rig something that they can use to go ahead and provide a SIP gateway to all the different analog interfaces that exceed out there in the marketplace. Well, lo and behold, that's what really led to the generation of our PA systems, because what this is really exactly that. We've taken the core SIP product within our phones as well as within our access units, which we take here, because what we realize is that when you take the SIP core and put it out there and you put it there, that means it enables you, the service provider or the system integrator, to be able to convert any analog interface that will interface with whatever SIP product you wanted to deploy out there to really communicate voice as well as video. So with that said, this really comes in three separate flavors. We have the PA2, PA2S, and really the PA3. When you think about it, both of these units here, the PA2 and the PA2S, are really identical. The only difference between the two is that the PA2S is really a later generation that has been developed by a newer chipset. And as you know, today, the marketplace is really driven so that we want to allocate as much chipsets as possible so that we never fall behind in meeting the particular demands. So even though the core product here, the PA2, will still continue on, Very often, we've actually duplicated the sets and generated a PA2S that has the same functionality. Now, for those PBXs that have actually qualified the PA2, you can use the PA2S, and we actually have a standard template that you can use that will allow you to adopt the core functionality of the PA2S to operate within whatever environment that you might have. The PA3, on the other hand, has some differentiating features, and I'm going to get into that moving forward. In addition to that, complementing the PA devices is really an intercom, which is really something that complements it on the other end. But as well, we have different types of console units that we can use as a speaker monitor. If you notice, all of these phones have a gooseneck microphone that enables you to speak into a mic rather than to use a standard handset or to use a speakerphone, because very often when you're out there in a dynamic environment, you have to go ahead and talk into your mic, which actually contains a very isolated voice, rather than if you put on speakerphone, you get to drag in a lot of the outside noise, which will get transmitted throughout your organization. And last but not least, we also have a management system device. This is FDMCS. And for those who are familiar with Fanvil, this is our management system, which really contains a redirection server, which enables you to do out-of-the-box provisioning, as well as a management server as well here that you can go ahead and populate these config files. So it allows you to be able to deploy our PA series phones as well as our intercoms totally automated. So when you take them out of the box and you have them all MAC address loaded here, you can go ahead and download that config file so that you can spend less time configuring these things in the fields and then be able to go ahead and put these things in as you see fit. This redirection server also gives you the capability so that you can go ahead and actually use your own provision service. For those that are advanced users and have your own provisioning server, you can go ahead and have this so that once you put this device into the network and be able to show it on the internet, you could then use our redirection service to be able to point that so that you can see it and then download through your own provisioning server. So we have the infrastructure, and by the way, both of these services are provided free of charge for our partners out there, because we realize that time is really of money out there, and that you can go ahead and spend as little time as possible deploying our solutions in the field. Right here is really a sort of a high-level flow about how these things are really put together with a couple of examples. Here you have the cloud or a local PBX server that you have here. This could be on-prem or in the cloud, and this typically interfaces into a WAN or LAN depending how you do it. Now as well, you can have a device management system which is in the cloud that you can go ahead and have that manage all of these, not only the console phone, but everything that you have tied into the Fanvil solution network. So even though you might have some phones that we spend a lot of time on being totally qualified on the provisioning menu, for those that are not listed on the PBX provisioning menu, you could use our device management system to be able to provide that configuration and then download not only to our business and hotel phones as well as all of these different I-series units. You can use ours to be able to do the same exact thing. So with the control center, you can really have a center console that's really located on-prem or even remote. And I'm going to show you how to go ahead and configure those moving forward. And these will interface to many of the PA2Ss that we've shown here, as well as the PA3s. Here in the case of a particular parking lot, we have situations where you can use an intercom system where you can actually put something together that has a button as well as a camera, or as an alternative, you can retrofit your existing parking lot to use our PA2 system so that you don't necessarily have to upgrade their entire kiosk, which they've paid lots of money for, and you could put in a PA2 to convert their analog interface into something that works SIP. And you also have a relay internal here that can also provide you the in and output to be able to open and close these gates. Same thing with the unmanned ticket machine, but in the broadcasting public area, we also realize that a good bulk of the items that you broadcast only contains audio primarily, in some cases video. In that case, I would ask you to look at our PA3 system. In our PA3, you could use the same thing. You can use really our video-based intercom, which is all put together with a button and a microphone and video, or if you have something that's already in existence, you can really put in a PA3 system and be able to add on an external button, an external microphone, an external video as well, so that you can cater or upgrade whatever interface that you might have in your public area to really meet whatever broadcasting systems that you have. Now, one of the things that's unique is that Fanvil has available a PA kit. And what we mean by the kit is that we provide separately a camera, a microphone, buttons, and all those type of things that interface very well with both of these units to enable you to go ahead and find the ideal match so that you can go ahead and put basically a whole piece like this together, or you can do it piecemeal through the PA3. So these are really the flexible solutions. And our idea is that you can go on and deploy a SIP solution to your marketplace going well beyond phones and begin implementing a lot of the IO and security solutions that you find here. Now let's just talk about the remote management solution for a second, because this is really a big time saver. Once you go through what we call our boot camp, and by the way, we have on our website, you can go to fanvil.com, go to our support tab, and on there are training videos that allows you to be able to take video 1 through 3 that I've actually helped provide to you a video base and showing how to configure our FDMCS system so that you can modify this to make it work in your system as well. And what this does is that internal to all of these iUnits is a config file which provides all the time zone settings, all of the local zone settings. These are things that you have to do for all of these solutions, and it becomes very repetitive. And what I suggest is that you can go ahead and use this system to really update all of these config files in advance, put in the MAC address into the redirection file, and have those MAC addresses automatically configure these devices when you plug them in the internet. And the end result is whether you deploy 10, 100, or 1,000 units, it becomes auto deployable. Just like, you know, for those who deploy many of our phones, it really operates the same way. And again, this service is provided free of charge to all of our partners out there. Now let's go a little bit into the console phone center. This is a big part where a lot of people decide to go ahead and use this. Why do we decide to look at this one? This is one of our new Linux-based phones. We have one of several different models, but in the case for this webinar, we're going to use this because this comes standard with a gooseneck thing here, but the big add-on for this thing is really it comes standard with Android 9.0 operating system. And the reason why that's the case is that many third-party Android applications that you may want to download really require a version 8 or above in terms of having it operate and using all of its features. So you have to really take a look at really the operating system that goes ahead in here. No one right now would be able to go out and buy a PC that has version XP. You want to make sure that you have the latest operating system so that you can take advantage of all of the different things. Now, in addition to having the latest operating system, it also has the latest video codec as well. So not only can you see all of the different speed dial buttons that I'm going to show you later on, but it also contains a video codec so that, as I showed you with our broadcast systems, you could implement a camera or use one of our access systems that have a pre-installed camera so that you can see who is it that's at the door or at your gate at a bunch of different locations, and you can press any of these buttons that you want to allow access in or deny access depending on what it is. And a nice feature about it is that this one actually contains onboard internal Wi-Fi as well as Bluetooth capability, taking advantage of both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So it really is a fully loaded phone that is Android capable, so that you can go ahead and take advantage of all of the different client applications, or you can use your own application if that's the case as well. Now let's just talk about some of the obvious things, some of the quick features. I'm not going to go spend too much time, but in addition to soft screens, you could also have function keys here that you can go ahead and program. This makes it very simple to really do up and down volume. You can really use these buttons to really provide a quick microphone access and all the different quick things that you want to do without even having to lift up the handset. If anybody ever had to lift up a handset when you're on a PA system, you can tell the clicking noise that you often hear could be very, very annoying, and we provide really a seamless interface for you to be able to do that. And in addition, we also have a USB 2.0 interface as well that really allows you to put in a USB card on the side loaded with music. It could be a WAV file or MP3 files that you can use this phone to broadcast music throughout your organization and everything. And obviously, this also provides a color screen and all these other features that you would expect at a high-end phone. Now let's just talk about some of the accessories as well. Even though we stated that it comes shown as a one-way camera, that you can see video here, you might have some applications out there that might require two-way video. And if that's the case, we actually have a Fanvil CM60 high-definition camera that you can add on as an auxiliary device that you can buy separately, which provides you that two-way video in case you want to do a Skype call or some other type of interface that requires two-way communication through a single interface. In addition to that, there's also a push to mute handle, which we have here as an auxiliary unit, that those who may want to have it, you can actually have a mute button on your actual handset that you can provide a muting function for those who want to have really high traffic type of announcements that allows you for real quick key access as well. Okay. Now let's just talk about some of how the interface would look like when you're using this on a real-time basis. If you see on the top menu here, you have the intercom and broadcast system. It has intercom interface, broadcasting interface, as well as a management interface. In the case for intercom, you could actually put together a set of groupings. In this example, we put together 3 different locations, one in Shenzhen, Beijing, and Suzhou areas, that you can group up specific particular groups that really pertain to what you want to go ahead and monitor. Should you want to do that for actual extensions and all that, you can have really a 3-color display that gives you a good idea of what these phone calls look like, whether they're on or off, or you could look at this as the health status of what device is contacting you. This could be a PA system that you have out there. If you're receiving a call, you will see these things ringing or something like that, and you could be notified and ring this particular group as it shows up. In addition to that, it also has a lot of function keys that gives you all of these different types of video surveillance and video monitoring type of interfaces that provide you all of these intercom interfaces. So it really is a flexible interface that you can go ahead and group and see as you see fit as you go on and move on into the field. Next is the broadcasting. In this case, many people want to go ahead and broadcast music throughout the store or throughout your office, depending on what you want to do. I mentioned earlier that you can go ahead and put music on a USB card and put it on the side. And what you'll end up getting is really a listing of this type of audio files that you can have here. And these could be just pre-done announcements, or this can be music if you want music in the background, so that you can actually group these type of musics that you want to put together and actually control the type of things that you want to do. You can play, stop, delete files, and you can add files from one specific location, giving you a really simple interface to be able to add and delete all the different type of things that you want to broadcast into the system out there. And last but not least, you have a management interface, which actually gives you an administrative mode or the unmanned mode. And as well as when you have the administrative mode, you can go ahead and enable line 2, line 3, line forward, all of these different to maybe perhaps a mobile phone application. Because many people don't stay at their desk all the time. They have to be flexible and be mobile and remote. In that case, if you have admin privileges, you can put in your specific extension on here so that when a call goes into this call, it'll actually go ahead and ring your specific mobile phone, giving you the ability to perhaps put in a speed dial key on your mobile phone or put in the specific code key access, giving you the capability to unlock that specific gate or be able to communicate to whomever is being able to speak to you. So that gives you really a full access, or you can give totally unmanned access, really providing a tight security when you're gone, when the admin is out of the system, so that they're not messing around with how the system operates in it. So those are the 3 types of interfaces that you might have in this. Now let's just talk a little bit more about the meat and potatoes of this PA gateway moving forward. Now, with these 2 things put together, this is really a PA2 and PA3. And the analogy I like to use very often is that this is what I call the Swiss Army knife of SIP, because many people who deploy SIP deployments out there in the field, This is really the core, and what I call this the Swiss Army knife. It can really fit into so many different applications. It could provide you the ability for broadcasting, provide security alarms. It could also, supplement things in an elevator where you can take the analog speaker system. So when you upgrade that building, you also have the ability to upgrade all the speakers inside the lifts to be able to allow you to operate in the SIP interface, as well as you can provide recordings and all that stuff. So it really has all the different functionality that provides you a core SIP, and then you can have all of the analog interfaces that enables you to adopt whatever analog interfaces that you have going into that system moving forward. And it comes in 2 different flavors. I'm going to talk about how these things change as you move forward. Here's a quick example of when you have really a control center where if you go ahead and you're out there, if you're perhaps being a security guard or out there, you might not be behind your desk, but you might be remote looking around a building. And when someone calls in and someone's stuck at the gate, they call the control center. But then if they go ahead and you're not present, you could then reach for your smartphone and be able to dial in the correct DTMF tone. And once that's done, you can go ahead and set that tone to be able to release that tone or be able to communicate with the person at the gate to say, to find out what that emergency call is all about. This is that one type of remote scenario that gives you that flexibility to do that. Now, in addition to broadcasting, this kind of does a quick example of being able to provide a multicast environment within your office as well. Using the PA3 as an example, you can use the PA3 as a multicast output device where you have a lot of the mobile sources that you look here. This could be a mobile phone, an FM broadcasting device, or a DVD that provides audio line in. And what it can do is it can multicast out throughout your entire network, and you can use a PA3 or a phone or whatever SIP device that's listening in on that multicast address that can feed into a voltage amplifier. And this amplifier can really power a whole network full of PA speakers that exist above your ceiling or what have you, or you can use it to power a bunch of passive horns or active speakers that you have out there in the field that operate under an analog interface, but you're allowing to use either the PA3 or any other SIP device to be able to manage all of these things together in one specific network. And using this in a TF card, a USB card, you can plug this in a phone here and be able to provide that level of broadcasting, and that you can actually broadcast music throughout your entire office or floor or whatever have you in listening into that specific system. Looking at it a little bit closely, here's the PA2 really up front close. As opposed to a lot of the different applications which I showed here, the big difference between the PA2 and the PA3 is really one item. The PA2 really contains a switch signal output, meaning that you can use this to provide emergency access to an entrance door, to a parking lot meter, to perhaps other things that require some relay system going in and out. And these are ways that you can go ahead and use this because we've actually incorporated some of our intercom and access security technology into this unit, giving you really the core of what you need to do. And you can supplement this PA2 with other items, which I'll talk about in the future. Now, looking at the other side of this unit, is that the PA2 gives you 2 Ethernet port access. One is dedicated for a webcam, and as I mentioned, we had a PA kit provided earlier where the PA kit gives you a camera. It also gives you a one-click button, and it also provides you with a microphone that gives you quick, easy access to be able to provide this interface so that you can go ahead and retrofit and upgrade whatever type of interface that you have there to work within your SIP system. In addition to that, we have the main WAN port that you can plug in, and it works via PoE under a class 3 environment. And this is how it works, and you can really manually control the volume buttons here, where you can up and down the volume manually depending on how you want to do it. And you can use the speaker line output here to really drive either an active speaker or passive speakers moving forward. In addition to logic, this is the real difference between the PA2 and the PA3, is that the PA2 contains logic that enables you to really power on a signal, use a trigger switch that you can push a button and be able to automatically open a door or a gate, etc. Or you can use it to really do an alarm lamp. Many people like to put in phones in a loud environment, which they need some sort of a strobe light. So when a call is coming through, people have a visual effect to see what you want to see when a call is ringing. And you can use this to really supplement what you have in being able to notify people about a call that's coming in. Now let's talk about the PA3 specification a little bit up close. This is really dedicated to audio only. And when you talk audio only, there are a couple of upgrades by moving to the PA3. Instead of working with the PA3, we've upgraded the audio compliance up to, I guess, MP3 type recordings, which has a higher frame rate, which means that you can really broadcast audio with slightly higher fidelity. Now, don't get me wrong, the PA2 and the PA3 will be able to broadcast voice clearly in both ways, but the PA3 takes it up a notch by being able to perhaps support music. So in music, you want to make sure that everything is crystal clear, but when you have voice announcements, both of the units will actually work fine. And in this case, it only has one single output here in terms of the PoE interface, but you could as well interface with many things on this PoE. Here, the added capability is that on the side of the PA3, it gives you 2-button access versus 1-button access. These are little things that we start to put into the PA3 that we've taken from our security access products. Instead of having 1 button that's supported by the PA2, you can beyond that and really put on 2 buttons to provide you that level of functionality for the PA3. And of course, you can go ahead and provide an input through a mixer and all these different sources in here, and actually provide connection to your network with all of the different volume keys as well, with a separate input of power supply here. And of course, you can interface to all of the different speakers, both active and passive, moving outwards. Here's some of the little odds and end differences about how you would hook up video in case you need to put video. Because all the phones, including the A32i, the console unit, this one has a separate interface. And as I shown on the previous slide, there was a separate output that you can have a camera that enables you a quick connection to this output because it has an Ethernet connection. Now, on the other hand, you could also use the PA3 to connect video as well, but you can only connect it via the IP address. So if you actually have the GUI of this particular device, you can actually configure the video input as a particular IP, and it will go ahead and take that video in, and you can show that camera on any of our phones moving forward, whether it's the business phones or a particular monitoring device that I just showed earlier. But that's the way you can kind of hook it up. So the PA2 supports method 1 and 2, or the PA3 supports only this one method moving forward. This is just a matrix that kind of showed you everything that I'm just going to say, but some of the things that you have to be careful of is that for the PA3, this really provides a class 4 interface on the PoE, so that for those who want to have higher output in the PoE interface, the PoE provides up to 25 watts of PoE power, as well as a class 3 interface, which is more classic, provides up to 12.95 watts in the PoE interface. Now keep in mind, this is just a PoE interface. Both of those devices, whether it's the PA2 or PA3, can actually hook in an external power supply, totally bypassing the Ethernet. So you can use a passive Ethernet interface as well and power this device using an external power supply. And some of the odd things I'm going to show you in a case study is that even when the power goes off, because power surges do happen at times and power outages, these devices can also remain their real-time clock for up to 32 hours on the PA3 and 4 hours on the PA2. If that's important to you and you have these particular time matters, that little specification might be a little handy depending on how you want to do that. So let's talk about the application scenarios moving forward. Of course, as I said, any place where there's audio, a lot of this is very straightforward, where it could be a warehouse. Very often in the back, you don't want to necessarily have a phone on the back of a warehouse. When the truck arrives to pretty much provide a shipment, you just need a single button that provides, hey, listen, open up the gate so I can unload my stuff. It really requires a simple interface. You can do it with a pre-programmed interface with our iSeries product, or you can retrofit an existing hard case thing that's already tied to the wall or what have you, but you can put one together to really address all of these different types of applications here. It could be on campus, shopping mall, very places where you don't necessarily need a keypad, but a very simple interface that allows you to address all of these specific environments. In the case of a smart community where you have a lot of different buildings, these are all the cases where you can have a remote security room or security offices that gives you really remote control access to all these different buildings and all the different places. We have a case study that we actually published on our website that gives you a perfect case where we actually used a PA2 within a high-rise building that allows some sort of monitoring, because some people were going into elevators and bringing things into the elevators that really weren't legal per se for that region. And we provided, really SIP capabilities to give you audio or video monitoring within the elevators if possible, using a PA2 device, or wherever you want to go ahead and do that. I talked about public broadcasting, so I don't want to, drill this in too much, but we also have these really pre-configured access devices here that really provide you a whole, almost turnkey solution in a lot of the entrance buildings that give you really not only just key input, but also an RFID input in both cases, so that you can just pass on a key fob giving you granted access, but all of them can work together in one big system, giving you one big access in the security room through our interface camera here. Oops, sorry about that. Again, the same example on a campus, really many different environments in a campus security environment, but in a smaller scale shown here. Of course, there's hospitality services here. We've seen a big growth for Fanvil over the hospitality room service, and that's a reason because we've introduced really our new Wi-Fi based hospitality room phones. But within some of the larger hotel rooms, we actually have cases where we have the PA systems that really take the place of the old PA systems where people make announcements in their hotel rooms, all controlled by a single reception phone here, or even whatever existing SIP phones that may exist out in that specific hospitality environment. Now let's just talk about the case studies here. These are some of the case studies out there where you can operate a normal kiosk, and sometimes things don't always work as they were programmed. And if that's the case, you can go ahead and push a button right here. And when you look at the button that's behind that keypad interface, here's a PA2 that you can use for a person that interfaces. And what this will do is provide an interface into whatever call center that gives control into a unmanned kiosk, giving them capability to address whatever questions that they may have running this automated environment out there for that type of environment. In the case of a retail store, here's a case in Mexico where you actually have a SIP Ethernet cable that's running out here that runs an external speaker here, as well as an internal speaker here. This could even be a car dealer as well, where here you can actually have a SIP PA2 or PA3 environment running here, driving a horn microphone, being able to provide announcements or whatever call throughout your system here in the phone, or perhaps in a used car dealer or a new car dealership out there in the field. So these are just little cases here that use our equipment to be able to support that. And last but not least, we have a situation here in Indonesia where you can actually go out, and we actually retrofit a lot of these emergency call boxes that are within these stations. People may want to have a simple one-button interface to be able to find what's going on. This could be an emergency call. And in the past, this was all done with an analog button that provided an analog call in. What we did was really inside here, upgraded it to work with SIP, so that we only added the capabilities of providing a video input, audio, as well as the ability to call a central location without necessarily changing the whole infrastructure. Of course, you're going to have to upgrade the wires, but then this gives you that output capability, minimizing whatever types of hardware that you have to do moving forward. Now, I believe this is the last of this whole set moving forward of this webinar, and I'm going to switch into really the Q&A functionality at this point in time. So for anybody willing to listen and provide any questions, I'm going to look at the question box to see if there's any questions I may do. For those who probably are in a rush of time and need to leave, I want to thank you very much for your time and listening in. For those who want to listen in on whatever questions that might arise, feel free to go ahead and put your questions on the question box within the client, and I'll stay here for as long as possible addressing those questions, okay? Again, for those who aren't interested, I want to thank you very much for your time, and now I'll stay around for the next 30 seconds or so to see if there's any questions. So right now, as I speak, I don't see any particular questions come up now, but what I'll do is I'll hang around here, and so far no questions are arising. So what I'll do here is I'll just go ahead and thank everybody for your time in visiting me today. And should anybody have any questions, I would highly suggest you contact our channel partners out there who provide these units for you to go ahead and operate in all these things. One person came up with a question, whereas the sound was 45 to 60 seconds late compared to speech. I'm not necessarily sure what may have caused the delay in the system. I mean, that might be specific because when you go ahead and actually say it in, it really operates the same as a phone call that you did out there. So anyways, that was a little bit behind that operation. Okay, that's all I have. Again, sorry, the late show was behind. Okay, sorry about the little bit delay and the delay that somebody's told me that the audio came in a little bit late. I hope it's well understood. For those who may have came in late, a soft copy of this presentation is available under handouts, so feel free to go to the handouts and pull out a soft copy of this for your future reference. But if there's any questions, feel free to go to our contact session if you want to contact Fanvil directly, or just go and reach out to our specific channel partners out there who have a lot of these sample availabilities, and you can provide these as a sample test drive to go out there and see what type of things that you might have out there. Okay? Again, thank you very much for your valued time and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.